much. I'm the last thing standing between you guys and the beer, so I definitely will make it short, but hopefully impactful and important to you guys. The reason I'm here tonight, or this afternoon, is really to talk about the value of CENGN and the future of smart infrastructures. Smart infrastructures has been very important to us, and I've been glad to be involved with CENGN very early in the process. So to talk a little more about CENGN, I'd say I've met Ritch quite early into the CENGN formations, and I've been glad as one of the players or early players in this field to have the opportunity to work with CENGN into their training program and also helping create additional talent. I was very happy to see an organization like CENGN be created within Canada, because that was very important for us to be able to leapfrog. I was involved in the field from an international perspective for quite a while, and I was looking back home and seeing that nothing was really happening, and it was pretty slow moving locally. So CENGN was definitely the type of organization that was required to allow talent to be created. So we joined early, and we've been working with CENGN on the training material to create these leaders. Since then, CENGN has, we participated in some parts of the curriculum, but since then CENGN also has some ONF certified SDN training, and also developed their own expertise. So we were happy to bootstrap some of that, but look at all the students and talent that was created out of CENGN. So creating that talent is great, but it's not only about creating just raw talent, but having talent that can actually have the right level of leadership. So it's about creating leaders of the industry, people that actually can make an impact and a difference, and not just knowing the right skills, right? So out of the early students, so these are some of the first students from CENGN, which I got to know some of them. In fact, we hired one of them. But I will go in depth with some of these students and how they became leaders in the field from a CENGN perspective. So I'll talk quickly about Madison. Madison was a marketing student at CENGN. He's now our marketing director, has helped tremendously to grow Inocybe's brand internationally, like everyone on Twitter sphere, or even all the videos and all the events that we've been involved in. With the help of Madison, we actually were able to grow Inocybe's brand internationally over the past 6 months. So he's been doing a tremendous job. And it's not only about the networking skills, which is one of the biggest important thing about CENGN is it's, yes, networks and engineering, but marketing has been also a great asset. Also Ibrahim, so he followed some of our early SDN bootcamp and trainings that we were giving to the CENGN teams. But since then, he actually worked at BTI, and he's now at Trend Micro. He's been really involved in a variety of projects, a variety of skills, doing a great job into fulfilling some of these highly qualified personnel's requirement. Also Miriam, so not only from a technology perspective, it is CENGN can also foster the people that are going outside of the next generation network type of environments, and the same skills can apply, the same leadership can apply, and so Miriam, she is now at Meal Share, which provided 1 million meals to youth in need, great impact, and of course, I think Brook Street is also is a member of Meal Share. So great for that. I think they're doing a tremendous job. So the impact goes beyond networking is what I'm trying to say here. So what will be the next set of industry leaders? What's the next step? I think with all the hackathons, the activities, the infrastructure, CENGN becomes an important player that will enable these new sets of leaders and that will be able to join a variety of organizations. We've continuously been hiring people from CENGN. We believe it creates tremendous talent, and also we know that other companies in the region, in Ottawa and Montreal, even nationwide, will be able to benefit from the talent that will be formed as part of the Center of Excellence. Also from a smart infrastructure perspective, if you look at what there is from a CENGN infrastructure, it's really a multi-tenant, multi-vendor infrastructure that is that allows people to experiment, play, get to learn a variety of technologies. Our role in this ecosystem has been really on the open source front, but it's also great to be working with some of the vendor gear, getting exposed to both the proprietary and the open solutions into these bleeding edge environments. So CENGN's also been the first to have the OPNFV Pharos community test lab. So the Pharos lab is kind of a continuous integration test bed for the OPNFV project, and allows people to leverage the telco cloud style of scenarios, whether it's service function chaining or other next generation network technologies. So they actually get exposed to a very high profile project like OPNFV and can leverage that within their skill set into what they're building and going into either operators or vendors or other places part of that specialty ecosystem. More than that, another important thing is it allows people to get exposure. As an SME, what we actually have as a challenge is to be everywhere and do everything. CENGN has been a tremendous partner in giving us some exposure at some of the shows they were going. We've been at our own shows, and actually getting that synergy going. We were at the CENGN Summit with them on exposing some of our smart city POC that you might have seen here today if you went by the Juniper and Inocybe booth. But we were actually going and participating and getting some of the joint exposure with CENGN on some of these activities, and that has been very important for us to get additional visibility in some of these events. So for us, it's also more about, I guess that was the word of the day, but co-opetition. I guess everyone has that on their lips. It is a hard word, but in open source, that is kind of the buzzword, right? So everyone talks about co-opetition, open source, and so on and so forth. So when you're building an ecosystem, it's not only about competing products or competing solutions, but how do you actually leverage the common ground in order to accelerate innovation? If everyone is building its own little thing, it makes it very difficult to have real innovation, because usually innovation happens elsewhere, and you actually have to have this shakeup of ideas that will lead to true innovation, which is why these ecosystems are fundamental for us to be significant in an international economy. You know, I was in Russia, I've been to Asia quite a bit, and it's amazing on how fast they are moving. So as Canadians, I think it's quite important for us to get our act together and start moving in that direction. Otherwise, we might be the third world countries of the years to come, right? So I'll talk a bit about Inocybe Technologies. We founded the company back in 2005 to be SDN pioneers, for us it was all about user-empowered networking. What we wanted to do is say, okay, well, instead of having network admins manage the network, why not give that access or enable the end users to manage and operate the networks themselves? So that kind of transformed into cloud to some extent, and then it transformed into what people kind of refer under the SDN umbrella. But I've always been kind of playing around the same concepts, and as we've been expanding, we focused back in 2012 on the Open Daylight project as it got created, because it was a large industry-wide consortium initiative, and since then we've had like customers like and partners like Oracle or Avaya and other vendors that are building upon that sort of technology for their products, or in other cases, the operators are doing it themselves. So how do you, it's really an ecosystem meeting another ecosystem, and I think that's one important part of CENGN is it's not trying to be its own ecosystem, it's actually leveraging existing international ecosystem at the same time, like OPNFV, or like for us, we've been more involved in the Open Daylight ecosystem, but there are some overlaps, Venn diagram intersections between these projects, and that's what makes it strong. And leveraging these ecosystem platforms basically is key to success, because you actually have multiple people, multiple contributors. If you look at the Open Daylight project, for those of you that are not familiar with this project, it was basically a field of flowers. It was like, okay, let the flowers bloom for networking innovation, because we don't know what's going to happen. So what happened is it was this big umbrella, and it's still a big umbrella project of now 82 sub-projects. And the way you can look at it, it's more of a toolbox, right, of 82 different ingredients, lots of networking members, and if you're talking with vendors or people, I would say that Open Daylight means a different thing to everyone that you'll be talking to. So sometimes it's an SDN controller, in other cases it might be an IoT solution, and so on and so forth. So depending on who you're talking to, you would have a different type of answer on what this is. However, the important thing to understand is it's really a platform that allows people to solve networking business cases for innovation and IoT. So if you look that's from the SDX Central report, this was particular for the SDN controller use case. Open Daylight is the leading, or at least the most deployed or the most sought at SDN controller framework. So if you look at the number of deployments, you have about 61% of people that have deployed Open Daylight today, and about 65% of people that answered the survey were planning to deploy Open Daylight. So you can see that you have a large market-wide adoption, which makes it a little less risky, or at least you know you have critical mass in order to actually get something out of it. It's these large projects are always not perfect. However, when you have the critical mass, a lot of it can be solved by collective mindshare. The way we've been looking at this and why we got involved in this project is that when we looked at Open Daylight, we saw it more as the Linux of connected things, really something that you actually can use in order to manage a variety of devices, not only the network. The way I usually put it is Open Daylight is really about network plus sensor, network plus devices, network plus whatever you have on the edge. And it's not only about SDN or NFV or anything else. In fact, the power behind that particular platform and framework is that it allows you to basically turn equipment or devices or things into a living document. So think of it as bringing your phone and your network into this HTML-like page, where you can then script applications or do reactions or do intelligence, provide AI, gather statistics. And so it creates this living set of documents that can then be used to provide intelligence, reaction, and automation as required. So very powerful platform, but because it's so generic and powerful, a lot of, like, it's nothing at the same time. So the way we've been applying that is we've been leveraging the Open Daylight platform for example, smart city applications. We've had a demo today with Juniper on that. Open networking initiatives like community networks, open access networks, smart building, HVAC, so you can actually manage your HVAC, automation, security. Can even take it, embed it into a very small device like Intel's Edison, or we've done stuff on BeagleBone, Raspberry Pi, you name it. And you can also even, we've had discussions with Vermont Electric and so on and so forth to potentially have it more of an electric utility. So some of the electric utilities that are using proprietary systems will eventually potentially embrace some of the networking technologies you'll find from an open source perspective and be able to apply it into different type of utilities here. So that's our vision for it. And for us, the reason why we got involved, the reason why we started this whole journey from an Inocybe perspective was to have a complete end-to-end smart city programmable infrastructure. For us, it makes no sense to have duplication of wires, like have every operator put in their own set of fiber, their own set of gear. We believe that we should have at least one unified infrastructure that can then be sliced, shared, and leveraged by a community. So we want to empower people to kind of, a little bit like Uber, we don't want to own the infrastructure, we want to empower people to just buy the gear, then be able to sell that or procure that to other communities or leverage that gear and monetize it properly within a variety of federated infrastructure, right? So you want to be able to say, okay, you can buy some either vendor gear, white box, whatever, operate that and sell it very efficiently into a data utility model. And then let the service providers differentiate themselves and give them the power so that they feel that they bought the gear, right? So you need to also provide the feeling that you actually have the full control that you would have if you had bought the hardware. So that's our vision for smart cities. That would allow you to run IoT services, EL services, traffic lights, system monitoring, security systems, you name it, into isolated pipelines over a single shared infrastructure with a single set of fiber. Cloud applied to networking. So what we're seeing now is that race to the world's first open programmable green community. So there's a lot of cities raising their hands, either here in Canada or outside, that want to do something like that, don't really know where to start, and so on and so forth. So we've been trying to educate over the past 8 years on how actually one can be successful from that perspective. So there are international projects, international initiatives on open access networks. From a Canadian perspective, we must learn from that and also learn how to improve and leapfrog on some of these infrastructure in order to make Canada better and increase innovation here from a Canadian perspective. So that's all I had for today, and I wish you guys a great year. It was great being here, and I hope you enjoyed the summit. Thanks.